Today we've got a crazy story of revenge involving an entire neighborhood fighting back against a landlord. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, dress down, so I stood up. I worked in an office where they promoted a very new, unexperienced, unqualified suck-up from an entry-level guy to a team lead, one of 3 under the manager. There were roughly 30 people on the team. HR rules stated that he wasn't allowed to apply due to having been at the company less than 1 year, had 0 leadership experience, etc. Grievances were filed with HR and dropped despite multiple fully qualified individuals with spotless records being in the running. He was known to be a suck-up and wasn't really liked prior to his promotion. After the promotion, he was wildly hated, apart from a couple sycophants. Quite entertaining in retrospect how people will degrade themselves for the barest scraps of power. Anyways, middle management knew he was reviled and told him that he had to find a way to get people to like him. His solution was not required, but you should think of them as required happy hours every month. For the first one, most everyone felt like they had to go and started figuring out how to fit it into their schedule. Some of these people had an hour drive each way and were finding sitters for their kids. These people were terrified they would lose their jobs if they missed drinking a few beers with the boss. I should note that he has roped in everyone under the manager. I'm not even technically under this guy. I knew my rights and declined the invite. He comes by my cube a few times and the day of to try and pressure me into being there. Dude, there is no way I'm spending my free time with work people. You can either keep me on the clock or you can't ask me to be there. I know my rights. I liked my team members well enough, had been to parties at their houses, etc., but I'm not going out with a team lead under any circumstances. Team lead did not like that and walked away in a huff. Next day, everyone comes in and everyone is pretending like they had fun when it's very clear they're just trying to get away from team lead's attempted chumming with them. Around 10, we have a stand-up and he talks about how great it was to have everyone at the thing. Then he singles me out, talks about how antisocial I am and how management notices when people aren't team players. Don't skip required events, etc. Okay, dude. About 20 minutes later, I email the entire team, "Hey all, team member asked me about required after-work events that are unpaid, so I figured I would share with everyone. State statute blah says that for hourly employees like us, that we can't be required to go to these sorts of things without being on the clock. So if you can't find a sitter and can't make it, you don't need to worry at all. Totally friendly, totally non-confrontational, totally effective." Team lead sat by himself at the bar for the next 2 required but not required happy hours and had to find another way to force people to like him. I don't understand how forcing people to hang out somewhere is a good method to try to make them like you. I guess it could build some kind of camaraderie, maybe, but you would have to have the personality and the charisma to do so, which I'm willing to bet this genius didn't have. I'm legitimately curious, has ever a forced after-work hangout ever been all that beneficial? Zadangela commented, "It's much easier for people to like you if you're not a jerk." When I was a manager, I never scheduled social events because my folks worked 24/7 in 4 locations, and there was no way to be fair. Plus, I don't like those kinds of events anyway. Lady Gray Smith commented, "Mandatory fun should be done away with. Nobody wants to spend extra time at work events when it isn't part of the job." Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy crazy stories of revenge, it would be amazing if you left a like or left a review if you're listening to my podcast. Our next story is, our entire neighborhood got petty revenge against our terrible landlord. In 2020, my family moved to a new state for my husband's job. It was in the middle of the pandemic and renting costs were way down across the country. So we didn't think twice when we found a cute little house that fit our needs and was well within our budget range. 2 houses down from the school my kids would be attending and across the street from a really nice park. The house had been empty for a while. We assumed due to the pandemic, and the landlord, who was also the owner, seemed eager to get it rented. We had a friend walk through the house for us on video call before we signed the contract, and everything seemed like it would work out. As soon as we moved in, things started falling apart. The blinds fell off the window the first time I tried to adjust them. The plumbing under 2 different sinks started leaking within the first week. The seal on one of the toilets broke during the first month. We called the landlord, who came over and fixed everything on his own, but always asked that my husband help him. My hubby used to work construction, and the landlord wasn't too great with home repairs. Then, during the second month we lived there, the garbage disposal broke. When I informed the landlords, they responded saying that they could come fix it, but that they would need to charge me a $70 service fee for repairs as per the contract, and then pointed out that they should have charged me a service fee for each separate repair that they'd already made, but they were trying to be nice since we just moved in. I was confused. In every place we had ever rented, basic home wear and tear was not the tenant's responsibility. That's the entire reason we rent. I read back over the contract and realized that the line including a service fee for repairs doesn't specify for repairs due to misuse of tenant, just repairs in general. I argued with them that it was their home and they were responsible for basic repairs, but they insisted that I kindly follow the contract. I got in touch with the other landlords in the area, and they all agreed that my landlords were correct. Because most of the developed housing in this area is between 50 to 100 years old, landlords know that the basic wear and tear will cost them an arm and a leg every time something breaks. So they implement a fee to discourage tenants calling about every little thing that might break. But I wasn't calling because a door came loose off the hinges or a drawer fell out of the track. I'm calling because water is pouring from under the toilet, or appliances have shorted out, none of which is my fault. Regardless, we were stuck paying a service fee every time the landlord had to come fix something, which ended up being at least twice a month throughout my entire duration of our 2-year lease. Every time I had to call about an issue, they found a way to make it sound like the problem occurred because of our misuse. Because I had argued with them about the terms of the contract and insisted that these damages were not due to misuse, they decided we must be incompetent and began micromanaging everything. A few things they did: came over to supervise my husband as he fertilized and mowed the lawn to make sure he was doing it correctly, drive by at least once a week to see that the grass was mowed, leaves were raked, snow shoveled, flower beds weeded, etc., and would message us if they felt we had neglected it even a little bit. We did not live in an HOA neighborhood. They always ended their messages with, "If it's too much for you to handle, we can do it for you, but we would have to charge you a weekly fee." Yeah, right, over my dead body. Find hazards to nitpick every time they came into the house. The rug was a tripping hazard. You can't put those boxes there, they block the walkway and it's a hazard. You have to secure your trampoline to the ground because it might be a hazard. You have to take out the edging that you put around the flower bed, someone might trip into it and it's a hazard. To say I hated these people is an understatement. Call us on holidays to harass us about menial issues such as the last time we weeded the yard or fertilized. Then they insisted on receipts and proof and implied that we were lying because they said the entire yard looked unsatisfactory. To be clear, my husband dedicated 4 hours every Saturday to the landscaping of this sucky 1/3 of an acre lot, and it was the nicest looking lawn and yard on the block. Whenever we would call about repairs that we weren't comfortable handling ourselves, they would give us instructions like we were children. They would tell us what repair tools to purchase and how to fix it, even if we weren't comfortable with it. They insisted we try to manage it first before they came and looked at it. Even if it was an electrical issue or plumbing issue that would require us to make changes to the house, which was prohibited in our contract. At first, we played their game, but when the instructions they gave us didn't work, they would always respond with, "Well, you probably did it wrong, but I can come look at it for you. I'll have to charge you a service fee though, or you can call a professional." Another option they gave was that they could come observe us attempting to fix it and give instructions as we go, but if they had to condescend to physically touch the issue or repairs at all, that they would have to charge us a service fee. I really hated these people. After arguing the first time this happened about how unfair it was to charge me a fee after I'd spent a lot of my own time and money attempting to fix it per their instructions without any success, I told them to forget it. I would just call a professional. They took offense to that and told us that they had to approve any professional we called to fix the problem. If we wanted a pro to look at it, we had to do the research and send the landlord a proposal about who to use, and they would make the final determination. And we would still pay them a service fee because the repair had to be made regardless if a pro fixed it or if they fixed it themselves. On 3 different occasions, we had a professional come out to give a quote, each time for a different issue. Every time, the professionals refused to even bother with a quote for the specific issue they were called on because it was always a smaller part of a larger problem that would require extensive remodeling and repairs to do it correctly and ensure the problem was fully resolved. These were for structural issues of the home, such as the foundation being poured incorrectly, which was evident in the way the plumbing exited the basement, or the wiring being done wrong causing a fire hazard. Due to insurance issues, any professional would be unable to only address the immediate problem without making extensive repairs. Every time, the landlord would say he wanted a second opinion and then bring in a handyman friend who looked at it and would say that the pros were trying to scam him, that it was an easy fix, and that they could MacGyver a solution without spending thousands of dollars. Each time, their fix would only last a few months and then the problem would occur again, and they would come back and figure out another half-baked solution, for which we had to pay a service fee every time. By the end of our 2-year contract, I was totally done with these people, but unfortunately, renting prices had gone way up and nothing else close by was in our budget range. We asked a few months before our lease was up if they would be willing to renew the lease with us, considering we felt like they hated us and we totally hated them, and they told us they would let us know before 60 days before the end of the lease. At 11:30 p.m. on the last day they could still legally inform us, they sent us the lease renewal agreement, which included a 25% rent increase and new clause stating that all damages the landlord deemed to be the tenant's fault were to be solely covered by the tenant. Oh heck no! They already acted like everything was our fault, plus there was no way I was going to give them legal permission to make me pay for everything, plus they wanted to charge me 25% more to stay in the same broken down house? Screw that, we were moving. At first, my husband tried to negotiate the price down because he was shocked they would ask that much increase just to stay in the house. They countered that if they were to turn around and rent it to someone new, that they would be able to charge 35% more, and that the 25% increase really was giving us a break considering the going rate. So we decided that since we were going to be paying more anyway, we might as well move to a nicer house with nicer landlords. All 3 of my kids were going to finally be in school full-time, so I could pick up extra work to pay the difference. We found a place that was a little more expensive than the cost of staying in our old house, but with twice as much space and a really nice neighborhood. My kids could stay in the same school, so it wouldn't be too much upheaval for our family. I waited until 11:30 p.m. on the last day that I legally had to inform the landlords of our decision to renew, and I sent them an email stating that their house was really not a good fit for our family anymore, and that we would not be renewing our contract. This was 30 days before our lease ended. They retaliated by sending us a list of all the repairs that we had to make sure were completed before we moved out, which included a lot of small things but also big things like spackling all holes in the wall and repainting, removing any modifications we had made, such as shelving units, guardrails, and the partitioned office we set up in the unfinished basement, complete with lighting and flooring and walls, replacing the bedroom door that one of our kids broke, which was not a standard size and would need to be cut and sanded to fit the doorway, leaving the yard in the exact condition we found it in, fixed the flooring in the bathroom that had mold buildup underneath it. This last one was particularly irritating because the flooring by the tub had not been properly sealed. So any amount of water on the floor was going to run under the floor and cause mold. In fact, the base ceiling that ran around the entire bathroom outline was about 3 inches short of the length it needed to be in order to run flush with the border of the floor, and whoever installed it decided to leave that 3-inch gap at the middle of the tub rather than someplace unnoticeable like in the closet. The landlords insisted that the mold was our fault and that the unfinished seal had nothing to do with it. Then they got angry when I pulled up the flooring to determine the amount of mold damage because it meant the floor needed to be completely replaced. They acted like if I had carefully peeled it back, I could clean the mold and put the exact flooring back down. This wasn't stick-on squares, this was a roll of linoleum flooring that was over 15 years old and had been glued down with a professional-grade adhesive. Reusing the same flooring was not an option, as it was brittle and breaking apart. He was also mad that I mentioned to one of the professionals who came to give a quote that there had been mold involved at all. This was after I'd removed the adhesive and mold, and said I was ruining their chances of getting a cheap quote. After 3 different quotes for the bathroom floor, they refused to approve any one because every quote included needing to test for asbestos, which the landlord wasn't confident would end in his favor. So I told him I would do the work myself. I've put in flooring several times before, and I worked construction with my dad growing up, so I know what I'm doing. At this point, we only had 2 weeks left before we needed to be out. In the midst of all this, my husband's uncle passed away in a very traumatic and shocking event, and he ended up flying across the country to attend the funeral and be with his family. This left me alone with 3 kids to do all the repairs and finish moving into the new house. And in the meantime, the landlord also insisted on approving all the materials I purchased to make the repairs in the home. While all this was happening, our neighbors were ticked at the landlords for pushing us out. We had really good relationships with all of them. One neighbor was like a grandma to my kids and was always baking them goodies and inviting them over to play with their dogs. The neighbors across the street would always sit on the porch and chat with us on summer evenings. We brought cookies to everyone on our block during holidays and made it a point to get to know everyone's names and know their families. It was a really tight community. Even before the landlords and owners turned nasty though, everyone told us how terrible they were because they had lived in the house themselves and the neighbors all knew them. Before our family moved in, the landlords would only rent to people from their home country who usually didn't speak English and didn't like to interact with anyone else in the neighborhood. On several occasions, the landlord admitted to neighbors that he didn't want to rent to anyone who wasn't like his people because it just didn't feel right. We were the first family who had rented that house that felt like an addition to the community rather than someone hiding from the community. When our neighborhood found out they had bullied us into moving, they were very upset. During the last week, the same time that my husband was gone for the funeral, I realized that I was way in over my head and wasn't going to be able to finish all these repairs and cleaning by myself. We reached out to the landlord and let him know that it would take us a few days past our lease to finish up the repairs, but that we were willing to do the work. He lost his mind. He told us that if he didn't get the house back in the same exact condition it was in by midnight on the last day of our lease, that he would charge us an extra month of rent plus sue for damages because it would be time lost that he couldn't rent it out to someone else. We reiterated that my husband was at a funeral and they had just barely approved the work on the repairs and materials a few days earlier. His response was to kindly follow the contract or he would take legal action. So, our neighborhood and church congregation came together and spent those last few days working on the house so that everything was fixed and in accordance with what the landlord demanded. One person painted, another person finished the flooring in the bathroom, one family had their kids come over to pull weeds, another guy brought tools to cut and sand the door to fit properly. Everyone agreed that all the repairs were things the landlord should be handling and shouldn't be our responsibility to personally repair or even coordinate the repairs for. These were things that should be covered in a deposit. The landlord acted like he had someone ready to move in the moment we were out and that he was going to lose that contract if the house wasn't ready. Spoiler alert, he didn't. Even after we turned the keys over, the landlord wanted to nitpick and make us come back to fix small things, which we flat out refused and told him he could take it out of our deposit. 30 days after we moved, we received a bill from the landlord. He nickel and dimed us out of every last cent of our deposit, despite all the repairs and work the entire community had done. Stupid claims like $150 to replace a window screen that had a hole in it, when I know he either wasn't going to fix it at all or just buy a $2 repair kit from Walmart. $800 for water damage to a kitchen drawer because there was some bubbling on the bottom, something that I know he was just going to put an insert on to cover it. He even cited damages that had been there since before we moved in, and he had himself charged us a service fee to fix several times, but the issue remained because he never properly fixed anything. His bill was in excess of $500 of our actual deposit. Some of it was to cover utility fees that I'd already directly paid to the city. I sent receipts of my payments for the utilities and told him I was not paying him any more money. If he wanted to withhold my entire deposit, so be it. But he wasn't getting another dime out of us. If he wanted to sue, go for it. We never heard from them again, but I was still ticked. My neighbors were still ticked, and we all wanted revenge, even if it's petty. Because the new house we moved into was only about 5 minutes away, my kids still went to the same school, the one that's 500 feet from the old house. I drive past it every day taking my kid to and from school, and we also still go over just to visit neighbors. Here's what I found out from chatting with them. Every time the landlords would bring someone in to show the house, the next door grandma would make sure she or her husband were doing yard work. They would make sure to strike up a conversation with the prospective tenants and always mention how the last family who lived there was so wonderful, and it was really awful that the only reason we had moved away was because of how the landlords treated us. Someone, I still don't know who, took to knocking on the doors and windows at all hours or the night, which sent alarm notifications to the landlords. They started to keep his personal car parked in the driveway of this unoccupied house to deter break-ins. My neighbor, who liked to sit on the porch and chat with us in the evenings, decided that any time the landlord was doing landscaping work was a time my neighbor wanted to be enjoying his peace and quiet. He yelled at the landlord for making too much noise so often that the landlord ended up buying all new landscaping equipment that was electric and specifically intended to reduce noise. The house sat empty for 6 months before they got new renters. I watched the price move up and down on Zillow every month. At first, they tried to rent it out at $800 more than what we had been paying. Then it steadily dropped each month until they were asking nearly what our original rent was. Eventually, they rented it out, and it was much cheaper than we had tried to negotiate them down to, which gave me great satisfaction. I found a way to introduce myself to the new family within the first couple of weeks that they lived there. It was easy to spot them during school drop-off and pickup times since they walked their kids to school. "Oh, you moved in? We used to live there. The neighbors are so nice. I hope you don't have too much trouble with the landlords." After a little over a year of the new family living there, I noticed a moving truck. I had done the math and knew that they were still in the middle of their lease. I decided to be super petty. I knocked on the door and reintroduced myself and verified that they were moving. Then I unloaded everything the landlords did to us during our move-out process and how they screwed us out of thousands of dollars even after we did all the repairs. I gave them pictures of our move-out process so that if the landlords tried to charge them with certain damages, they could prove that it existed before they moved in. I gave them contact information for everyone who had worked on the house before we had moved out so that they could have a timeline of all the damages that I'm certain the landlord would try to pin on them. They verified that the landlords had been unbearable and were the main reason the family were moving out. And once again, the landlords had sent a laundry list of repairs the family was required to fix before moving. After our conversation, the husband told me he was going to inform the landlord that he would only do the cleaning and repairs if the landlord returned their entire deposit up front. Otherwise, he wasn't going to do anything beyond removing his possessions from the property. I'm assuming he didn't get his deposit back because a few weeks after they moved, I saw the landlord and his wife in front of the house. They had hired someone, not a professional, to clean up the yard, and they had set up an umbrella and chairs to shade them while they micromanaged the work this poor laborer was doing in the hot sun. The house has sat empty for over a year now. According to our old neighbors who we're still good friends with, they've only shown the house a couple of times. It's both for sale and rent at much cheaper than the going rate, but no one wants it. As I understand, the neighbors still do what they can to harass them. Someone went back to knocking on doors and windows to set off the alarms because the landlord had his car parked there 24/7 again. One neighbor also reported him to the city for blowing his leaves across the street into the park rather than bagging them himself. And I hope he got a hefty fine and lots of back pain every time he had to rake and bag his own leaves. Now it's covered in snow, and because the house is so close to a school, they have to come over and ensure the walkways are salted and shoveled. It sure is a lot of extra work for a house that's empty and not bringing in any income. Every time I drive past to drop my kids off at school, I see that for sale sign and get the sweet satisfaction that they aren't making any money on that house, and that they aren't terrorizing anyone else. And in case anyone is interested, the new house we moved into has the most amazing owner/landlord. They've never harassed us, they've fixed anything that's gone wrong with the house without any complaint, and the only time they've charged us anything beyond the agreed rent was when a bracket on the garage door broke because my kids left something in the way, and they asked us to cover the cost of the new bracket, which was less than $50. We've lived here for nearly 4 years now and love it. I think I'm trying to understand where the heck this actually took place, because is any of that actually legal? It's so predatory. Who in their right mind is going to sign this thing knowing that you're going to be held liable for anything going wrong in that house while you're there? Aussie Burb commented, "That was a long read, but I would be looking to every legal option to inconvenience that landlord after that." Wolfpack Matt commented, "Where is this? Most places have laws about how normal wear and tear can't be charged to the tenant even if it's in the contract, since a contract can't supersede law." OP replied, "We live in the Metro Detroit area in Michigan." Our next story is High School Revenge I Still Remember 50 Years Later. My English class was during the 3-period lunch, 25 minutes of class, off to lunch, then back for 25 more minutes of class. It's springtime and all the kids have water pistols, including me. I come walking into English class, male teacher is at his desk, and I get hosed by 4 guys with water pistols. It was a trap, they nailed me good. Dang teacher just ignored my impromptu shower. Lunchtime, everyone leaves except I'm back in the classroom 2 minutes later. I go up to the teacher's desk. His chair is an old wooden one with deep scallops in the seat for butt cheeks. I open up my water pistol refill spout and pour it all into the left cheek. Then out the door, refill, back in, and fill the right butt cheek. Come class time, I intercept the teacher and walk with them to the classroom. Soon as his back is to the class, the other guy's water guns come out, and you'd have to be deaf to miss the squeak squeak of the triggers being pulled. The teacher still ignores the fact that I am soaked again. Then he sits down. His eyes go wide. He makes a shocked sound. Those 4 guys giggle. That was 50 years ago, and I will never forget the look of shock on his face. He grabs up those 4 kids and hauls them to the principal's office. All got a month of detention. Considering the class size and the way everything kind of operated 50 years ago in this story, I'm assuming this took place in a very small school. I mean, how else do you get away with having a bunch of water guns at school? This is my burner account commented, "I think I'd probably be pretty satisfied with that 50 years later too." Neil Hendo replied, "Water way to get your revenge." Our next story is, my friend got an unsolicited D-pic, so I sent one back. I was at my university library studying with my friend when she received a Snapchat photo of what appeared to be a frankly subpar dingus. She had been texting the guy, but they had never exchanged these types of photos. We were both pretty ticked. Then I got an idea. I told her my plan. She agreed, so I borrowed her phone. I took it into the bathroom and did my best to make myself look, well, presentable. Then I sent him a disappearing photo of my junk. Now, my crap isn't all that special. In fact, it's more or less average, but it did happen to be more, well, presentable than what Mr. D photo was proud to share. He sent her one last message. "Wow, you upgraded," and then she never heard from him again. Edit, this was on an ephemeral messaging app called Snapchat. Because of how the app works, she didn't see the photo I sent, and it wasn't saved to her phone. Also, I used her phone to do it. I never sent anything to her. She didn't see it, y'all. I did not send her a D-pic and nothing was saved to her phone. I love that OP had to go at bat for themselves and try to clarify to everybody in the comments that no, they didn't find some roundabout way to make their friend look at their junk or something. To be fair though, on Snapchat, that guy could have saved that snap to their chat and commented on it there, and in theory the friend could have seen it. So it wasn't a foolproof plan, but chances are that guy wasn't going to save OP's junk pic. Kesselbang commented, I have a collection of unsolicited dingus pics which have been sent to me over time. I keep them in a folder I can access from whatever device I might be using. Whenever I am sent a new dingus pic, I reply by sending them one from my collection every 20 minutes or so until it breaks them. They usually block me. Occasionally, one will message back berating me for sending them disgusting pictures they didn't want. Usually I respond with, your point being? Or, exactly, and blocking them. Petty, but it warms the icy cockles of my shriveled, evil little heart. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy revenge story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.